one thing about the Unapologetic Security Podcast is legit. We got good kit.
We do.
Good kit.
Hi, Chris Kennedy.
Hi, Jason Lord.
How are you?
Excellent. Thanks. Hey, first off, Greg, thanks for that intro. That's fantastic. One day we'll get some licensing to allow us to have jams that we prefer.
Speaking of licensing, for the future, if anyone's
we haven't
listening,
even gotten into this thing, and we're already promoting those that are fans of.
We're sharing our love for NEPCO, New England Brewing Company.
New England Brewing Company. I really like the Sea Hag too. This is the Fuzzy Baby Ducks. That's the fancier version.
We have had several of these, usually at the pub. But
Been a while. The pubs changed. Woo! Let's zoom out. Welcome to the Unapologetic Security Podcast.
Thank you.
It's fantastic to be here. Hang on a second. Let's get this thing going. Boom.
Greg,
thanks for
European
setting
beer.
all this up,
All right,
bringing
cheers.
you in early.
All
Greg Galai, Jason Lord, Chris Kennedy. Here we are.
All right, let's get this going. Round two.
Round two. All right. So let's start with the elephant in the room. How many listeners do we have on the hot take that we did last time?
About 400.
400 users. How long was it out there? 8 hours? 9 hours? No, it was like 24, right?
No more than 24.
Cool. So those 400 listeners that know, we've already done one round at this, and the short of it is that was literally just us riffing, trying to figure out how to use our kit and getting things going, and it turned out really well. So it's kind of a crowdsourced social experiment. We hung it out there. Had a lot of really amazingly positive feedback, which gave us incentive and energy to want to come back and do this again, which is why we're here. But we took that one down because we think we can do a better job, and we're here to do that today. And so here we go. So those that are looking for the old one, sorry you missed. Like and subscribe in what we're releasing today. And we are committed certainly to doing a lot more content now that we see that there's such an appetite for what these two jerks and whoever else wants to join us have to say.
And as a recap, what is it that we are trying to do here?
Yeah, good. Well, it was you who actually came up with the goal, Jay.
Oh, yeah.
So
Typical Kennedy turning around on me. Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
Deflect, son.
All right,
Boom.
I like it. So, So, Chris, you and I have both spent 25 plus years in this industry working in cybersecurity, security as a whole. And my recommendation was, hey, let's get together and have a unapologetic, not offensive, unapologetic podcast where we're able to go dig into these things.
What's the line between unapologetic and offensive?
We're not pulling anyone down. We're not going and targeting companies that we dislike for whatever reason. However, we're talking about the trends that exist in the industry, what we've seen, what we've worked on, what we're seeing happening, and reaching out to those up and coming things that are occurring in our industry and opining on them.
Yeah.
With the exception of Nord. We can bash those guys all day long,
dude. Can we pull that up? So there's some younger viewers in our audience who don't even know what this was. So I think we got to tell this story. We got to explain why this is funny.
What's the Google Nord Pew Pew map?
Just Google Pew Pew map, Nord Pew 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 map, and you can find it. There was a term that was used that I used in my career. A good friend of mine, hope he doesn't mind if I use his name, Chris Kinahan I think he's over at Sony now. Called it the funding augmentation display, the FAD, and so I remember seeing that, thinking that, and then seeing it again several times in our career. And it's a geographic map that shows cyber attacks taking place, but all synthetically derived, none of it real, but certainly enough to create energy and attention
and potential revenue.
God, why can't we remember? It's been so long. Anyway, so this podcast, Jay, Unapologetic, is about being a truth teller. It's about being honest with what's happening in the industry. It's about bringing people to the table and airing out in Festivus time, airing of the grievances of where we're seeing misalignment and where the industry's going, and not to punch down. I like that language from was it Chappelle or Obama? whoever used that line, I think it was Obama about Chappelle or something like that. We're not punching down on industry, and we're not punching down on any particular role or responsibility. It's more of like calling out the bullshit that we see,
Yeah.
and talking about it, and like giving people a platform to air those kinds of things out.
Yes. And anyone who knows us, it's not going to be a very well structured, laid out, mapped out, planned out podcast. This is a more, what would you say, Joe Rogan-esque. We got two friends sitting down talking. We're going to bring in people from the industry, people that we've worked with, spent time with, hopefully eventually luminaries in the industry to come in and share time with us.
Yeah. I like Joe. We had a conversation recently of like way we could build some interesting structure. I like Bill Maher's show and the way he presents it. Sometimes the topics are controversial depending on your politics, but I like that he has a monologue. He has a big topic. He has a panel discussion with guests, and then he has a surprise new rules and things like that. So I think we can steal a little bit about his style and a little bit of Joe and how he presents and is, characteristically human, and bring some real humans to the table with us and talk shit about what's going on in this industry and how we can all work together to improve it. But why do we want to do that, Jay? That was the thing that struck me the most is like, what's our motivation here? What's the force behind the thing, to use those principles of the past?
Oh, absolutely. So we work in an industry that when something happens, when something bad happens, we're the most important people around. We're the people that are the firefighters, the force that will come in and do whatever needs to be done to clean up the mess. And then the other 88% of the time, we're off in the corner fighting for budgets and pissing people off. So,
Well,
we've seen a lot, we've done a lot in this industry, and what we want to do is we want to get our thoughts, our experiences, our vision of what's going on in the industry out there in a way where a lot of people talk around it. A lot of the press talks around it, but we want to open it up and have these conversations.
Yeah, I think about it. It's a little more dire to me in that, like, you're a light bill to the organization, which is the way organizations often fund security until it's too late. I mean, I was on an interview just recently having a conversation about future career opportunities and where I wanted to go, and I was able to talk to the CEO and ask him directly, like, how much have you funded security to this point? And he gave me kind of a non-answer, and I'm like, well, you just had an incident, right? Like, if you were dealing with that, like, how did that happen? And have you reflected on, is that a reason, were you adequately prepared? And, it was kind of interesting and striking, like, what drives the motivation to invest? It's usually an event. And do you put locks in your door after the break-in, or do you put locks in your door hopefully to prevent the break-in? And so the reason why I'm saying the common sense things that everybody knows about this industry is that it's unfortunately tragic that as traditionally an overhead function within most organizations to which technology is now the core business, and security still remains a secondary or tertiary investment that's likely getting elevated but taking a long time to do, is unfortunately tragic. And like, that's part of what I want us to surface. Like, what are some of these issues? How can we help our peers and partners that are still in the fight every day influence and shape what their budget lines need to be? Or how can they build better relationships so security becomes more relevant and interesting to the business line, so they'll pay attention? And like, I think that's really important for us in our experiences. Like, you and I come from very interesting backgrounds. Like, I step back and stare at mine. Like, look at this gray beard. 25 years in the game, man. And I didn't ask for this. Like, my first job ever as a bootstrap kid from Tennessee was going into the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps gave me this really interesting, unique opportunity to be the first security guy in the biggest base in the Corps. And then from that, I was able to springboard into defense, to the defense industrial base, and got to lead national level cybersecurity things as a basically a graduated college kid, and built some great relationships, did some great things. But from that, I've moved through financial services to some of the most culturally crazy organizations you can work in, the Marine Corps and what that means. And people know what Bridgewater culture is about because Ray publishes his book, and startups. And then in my last stint here, it was a very interesting place to work. And so you add all that up, kind of seen and done it all. And I think there's a lot I can impart, a lot of wisdom I can share. And I'm sure you have too. I mean, like your background's as broad as mine, from the Corps to built your own forensics company to time at the White House. I mean, what am I missing from that? Like you've done other crazier shit too.
Yeah, absolutely. And running incident response for Fortune 500 companies, Global 1,000 companies, jumping on a plane in the middle of the night, right? You learn a lot. You see a lot, especially walking in to a company when it's at its most vulnerable. And you said, security in a corporate sense is a light bill, but no one's calling the power company at 3:00 in the morning unless there's a major incident. And getting someone to show up at 3:00 in the morning because your power's out, whether it's your house, the street, or the grid, it's a difficult thing for us security professionals across the board. We're out there. We're jumping on planes. We're jumping in cars. We're showing up and starting that triage work. And it all starts at that level. Like, hey, we're here to secure what's happening and figuring it all out and going forward. So, and then as you said, the culture piece, being nimble in multiple different
personality aspects.
Yeah. So like, obviously you and I both started our careers in the Marine Corps at different levels, but the takeaway for anyone listening that wants to get into the cybersecurity industry, if the two of us can do it, anyone can do it. But
hey, pause on that. Yeah. Like story here. So this is fucking great. I just graduated. ROTC scholarship, like great, super awesome. Gonna go be a Marine. Had no idea what I was gonna do. Marine Corps, like you're gonna give me shit for being an officer, so like we'll just get that aired out and on the table.
Yep.
And
done.
And so you have to go to this thing called the basic school for 6 months, where you basically learn how to be
essays.
What would our good friend say?
Book reports.
You write book reports. I did have to write a book report. And to be like, let me beyond that, like I didn't know how to use a computer in college, hardly. Mechanical engineer, like couldn't pay people to type my papers that I would handwrite and stupid stuff like that. Because I was a poor kid from Tennessee. I didn't have a computer. I didn't know what I was doing. And like I smart enough to be able to get to Vanderbilt, but like not smart enough to figure out how to do all these basic blocking and tackling life skill things. And so I'm getting to the damn Marine Corps, and I lucked into this shit. Dude, like I was at the basic school going to be an artillery officer because I thought big guns were cool. And like there was some sell around, you are kind of the master of your own little mini city as an artilleryman. You got a logistics thing to think about. You got a supply chain thing to think about. You got a placement and targeting thing to think about. And that all sound really cool. Somebody whispers in my ear, you should think about being a communicator. Because when you get out of the Marine Corps, which you inevitably will in 4 to 25 years, what are you going to do with your life after that? And I was the smartest thing that anyone ever said to me. And if there's anything that I give myself credit for, is that when somebody says something smart to me, I onboard that. And so sure enough, I selected communications. Nobody in the Marine Corps wants to be a communicator. Everybody wants to be an infantryman. And sure enough, got to be a commo. And as a commo, I got to be one of the first cybersecurity guys. And that's what kickstarted my entire career. Luck.
There you go. Now, just one line of questioning here.
Who couldn't type and didn't have a computer.
Yeah. So, not much has changed.
Right. 4 fingers, bro. 4 fingers.
Hunt and peck. Woo. So, are you sure the reason you didn't become a communicator is because someone told you that all the computer systems needed to be temperature maintained, which meant air conditioning.
No, I learned that later.
Oh, okay.
In the field, in the value proposition that presented. Not only that, classifications really matter. Like those classified computer systems really need to be protected, and they really need to be cooled.
Yes, absolutely. All right, good.
So we're here. Like, here's the show is like we're gonna lay down what we think about what's going on, and we've got a little bit of structured format, put that together, and the rest we're gonna learn on the fly. But I think the really important thing that we hope our listeners hear is that this is not just a platform for us to try to bring wisdom back to the community. It's a platform for them to share as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I hope when we put this thing out that people will, one, like commentary. What about this? Have you seen that? What are your thoughts on this? Because the reality is, like, we could spend 8 hours here running through career experiences, war stories, and lessons learned. But I want it to be tailored and targeted to like what people want to hear. And I hope people will also find a way to join us. Like something that dawned on me after our first episode is that, you know, I get it. Like most of the people that we want on the show and that have experiences like us to share are going to have to go through legal machinations to have that conversation. And we want to make sure that the show is as inclusive as possible. We want as many people to listen to us and garner the wisdom that we bring, and that they're going to be allowed to, and that we're just controversial enough to be an influence in the industry, but not one that it's going to create risk for people that want to come spend time with us.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And, you know, like and subscribe. Also, we'll be, when we post this, we have a Twitter account and an Instagram/Threads account. So communicate with us. Throw questions, experiences, requests, whatever you're looking for. Reach out to us. And you know, as true cybersecurity professionals, we do not have a TikTok account.
Well, we're gonna I'm sure that that will become a topic of the future.
Oh, it definitely will.
It's like, but we don't want to spoil all of that. All right, so like that's the show. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we want people to get out of the show. We want this to be a community, people to contribute to it, and you know, like ask our thoughts on things, and it to be real and relevant, and more importantly, like, shit, I did it again. Like we talked about this. Like, where are we? Studio A here.
Come visit.
So I moved up here, little lineage time. Like I transitioned out of the Defense Industrial Base, working for Northrop, and came to work for Bridgewater. Moved to Southern Connecticut. It was a great move, family opportunity, kids going to good schools, and all of that. And then I ruined your life and helped hire you, bring you up to work with us as well. But I've been here for the last 8 years. And I moved in, and Greg, can you help us out? Like show folks. I had this little shitty barn in the front yard that had a bunch of lawn mowing equipment in it. And over the past, you know, it took us 3 or 4 years of labor and time, I turned this into the neighborhood social club. And so this is kind of my place to come and unwind, talk shit. I've had probably some of the most important meetings of my life in terms of entertaining new opportunities, dealing with crises, and frankly, I live in a house, you know, a relatively modest house with my 2 daughters and my wife, and it's a great place to get away from them when I need to clear my head. And it's funny because now it's the neighborhood thing, so like people have come over here to do interviews or do work, and now here we are, you know, running our unapologetic security podcast from it. Yeah. So I'm really pleased to have that.
I love how you made that seem like it was your decision to get out of the house, and not that you've been relegated to this lovely barn. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything to say about sense of style here is that I don't even need the house anymore. Like I need you put a shitter in the backyard and I would be ready to go. I think I could just move down here and have all I would need. It's good to be a simple person.
Yeah, so all of our listeners and potential guests in the future, if you want to come up to ye old Connecticut and spend a couple hours with us in the barn, you're more than welcome. I do a hell of a barbecue.
Yeah, I'm a big green egg guy as well, so you know we can make It's one right out there, actually.
Yeah, we eat well. Something
You
over the
can't
last
tell
8
that
years.
from me,
Yeah.
but you focus on your health's really important.
Yeah.
I'm almost 50. The old man wisdom club. So cool. So that's the plan. That's what we want to do. So like to get into some stuff, like Jay, what have you seen this week that like topically that's been interesting to you, impactful for the industry? Anything that like really struck you in your LinkedIn feed or your social media feed this week?
Yeah. So we've had a conversation about this, and there's a large part of me that doesn't want to focus on the shark attack, the things that are out there that seem most scary. But if we don't get it out of the way now, we're never going to get it out of the way.
Right.
But it's the whole topic of AI and impacts on security, privacy, on the security industry, pen testing, attack, everything that is evolving out of this beyond just the question of what is AI, what is GPT, what's happening there, is it safe, is it secure, is there a way to even stop it? So there's a lot of press around that.
Yeah,
right
there's
now.
a lot of angles on all of those topics.
So obviously there's a lot of speculation at this point, but one of the things that caught me was this worm GPT topic of, hey, we got a cyber criminal tool kit that's out there.
Yeah.
That's pretty sophisticated, looks great, but where does this go? How impactful is this from an operator perspective, from a security operations, from a defense perspective? Is this just another toolkit that's being released? Is this a CD that's being handed out at DEF CON? Or, is this actually some real viable thing that people are going to be terrified of?
People are like, what's a CD?
Yeah.
What's DEF CON?
Bernoulli Drive. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I guess that's interesting. Yeah, like, of course, like my big statement about AI, and it's the reason when you think about the ethics around the release of AI, and how are we moving too fast? Like this is the Oppenheimer question. I was reading a great article. Remember Paul Podolsky?
I do.
Yeah, but I still read his Paul. Shout out to Paul. His blog, plug for him. Because he had a really great punchy line of like the paperclip analogy, and if like AI becomes empowered to manufacture paper clips, what will it do to generate the resources it needs it operates with no ethics, right? And so it will lie, cheat, and steal and rob to be able to do that. And so is that too far-fetched of an example? But the reality is, like, if you read about AI and how it's being operationalized, I've yet to find like a really powerful for good use case. All I can think about, and maybe it's because the way social influence is happening and the risks of it, and especially like when the Google researchers are quitting their jobs because the risk and concerns of where AI is going and how fast it's going into the market. Like all you hear about are the potential bad things. But like what are you going to get? You're going to get nothing but more disinformation, more recycled content. The bad, that's at least the bad thing, recycled information, bad content. You're going to get displacement of labor and people that do kind of mundane jobs, things that you would expect to kind of go away anyway. But the economic impacts of that, or how are we going to adjust and adapt quickly? When the truck driver loses his job because the AI engine can drive the truck, what's the truck driver going to do, and what's the retraining plan for that? And the big questions around the social responsibility. Does that fall to the truck driver to figure his life out, or does that fall to society and government to try to figure that out? But man, the controversy around that. So this worm GPT is just another wonderfully characteristic example of that. It fits right into the space to me of where everyone's been trying to go with automated testing, which is something that's near and dear to my heart. And my time at the startup was very much about using automated testing to make sure your security stuff worked.
Yeah.
And so this is just an echelon up on top of that. But the truth is, it's an echelon up if it's used for validation purpose. If it's not used for validation purpose, even lower skilled people can operate as advanced actors in ways that even advanced actors haven't yet, because it's stitching together new rubrics of TTPs that haven't happened yet.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Is the AI based attack platform or pen testing tool
A weapon system?
a weapon system, and then is the continuous monitoring and continuous defense alerting that any network might have that's AI based in the future, like is this an arms race, or does one negate the other?
Yeah, look.
Or is one learning everyone else's attacks and negating everything, and this is all just
Well,
fodder for a conversation on a podcast?
You're like, and that's like how many podcasts are like this right now too? Like all of them. Like, so sorry guys, another AI podcast, but it is interesting to me in that, like, that's the thing. Like, the very, very smart good friend of mine, still in the Marine Corps, we'll leave it at that, is worried about this problem a lot too, because of the things that he does in technology. And his confidence in that this isn't as much of a problem comes from a place that, like, AI is learning from what it knows and therefore can't invent. But the introduction of supercomputing powers, and what that means in our efforts, how quickly that gap will close in the Moore's Law concept of it will learn soon. It's just how fast will it be, and increase compute power, increase effort and evolution towards it. And then it will find the 0 day before the researcher does, because all the patterns have been tried, but it now has the ability to do that based on our contributions to the learning mechanisms of AI.
Sure. So allow me to make a sharp, jagged point, break the pint glass here. Read an article last week that the Air Force is building unmanned fighter aircraft that is learning all of this flight simulation data so that they can fly along, 8 support planes along with a fighter pilot that's in a bomber.
Yeah.
And
P.S. That was just in the Apple series Extrapolation, one of the series. Very interesting story about climate change and all of that. But, like, literally a pilot goes rogue and all the AI planes follow her to go do some terrorist act.
Yeah. So what happens when the pilot goes rogue, and now they have a squadron of bombers that are going to go take out, James Bond 80s movie bomb Silicon Valley. Or then what happens when the other planes take out the fighter pilot and go rogue on their own things?
Isn't that so? Like I wish I'd read that.
Is this a reality, or
I wish I'd read that article, because like there's like part one of that to me is like, remember what the threat vector we were worried about as we were coming up through our careers with automation in aerospace? It was about hacking into the aircraft and remote controlling it. Yeah. Now we're worried about the plane itself making a decision and going and doing a thing to achieve a goal that was unspecified or constrained or controlled and guardrailed.
Yes, but in our careers, what are the things that we've actually seen? We've seen nation states hacking in and stealing plans for airplanes, right?
Yeah.
And maybe possibly building those for an eighth of the cost. We see, nation states
that's
hacking
because the labor market's manipulated and economic. That's different.
Nation states hacking into high performance computing systems and stealing information that's both in the defense industrial base, the government, universities.
Well, 15 years ago, you saw China take over as like the world supercomputing power.
Yeah, exactly. So are all these probabilistic things that could happen, or did we just watch too many action movies when we were kids, right? Did we watch one too many, Grisham novels? Did we watch,
We've got to love sci-fi as a predictor of the future.
Absolutely.
The reality, like,
or The Simpsons.
Yeah, touche. Like, they're really good at like who's somebody's already done that, I'm sure. But yeah, like, are we watching reality TV? And that's the thing that, like, I've had the discussions with senior folks in senior places, not to name names, is like, I think they're worried that, like, this isn't the future. This is like months to years away. Not far. Not like something foregone. And I think the reason the panic that you're feeling that you're seeing in the research communities is that the infrastructure is in place. Like we're now a globally interconnected society. Social media has been established and poorly managed, and it's already having the detriment on our society through misinformation and what it's doing to people's self-esteem and things like that, and how it's changing cultures and all those ecosystems are not going away, right? We're not turning off our phones, and we're not turning off TikTok, and we're not turning off Facebook. So you add that together and now put a thinking mechanism that has uncontrolled morals and uncontrolled achievement of its own goals, and what is it going to do? Like, how is it going to behave? And that's what they're seeing. That's what the dots that they're connecting. And we're not going to do anything to stop it because the economic potential of it is as high as it is.
Yeah.
And that's like, but who's the economic potential for? Like when, most of the working civilization is doing repetitive work that a machine could probably do if set up right and trained right to do. And hence the dilemma.
Yeah, and hence the dilemma.
Is it not ironic too that ChatGPT had a security incident this week? Like it was like somewhat dumb Redis OWASP 10, and when it was disclosed were the queries that consumers were using. But again, back to like what's the real operational impact of AI today? What is it doing versus what the future of it is?
They're just another company.
It's just another company. And right now it's largely, hardly monetized in a meaningful way. People are trying to figure out how to monetize and build on it. So like seeing my query where I ask it to write me a country song about chickens in the spirit of Eminem's voice, like is not that interesting or of significant social value. But if a business organization or a military or federal service organization is using that for citizen use or for military purpose, like that's potentially lost. And yet another example of like the cybersecurity ramifications of building this weaponized potential brain in the arms race that's happening with Worm GPT. Like, it's funny, just connected to me the way you set this up is that like the arms race, isn't that Eternal Blue?
Yeah.
Like 2017, defense contractor that builds exploit code gets compromised, exploit code spills into the public sphere, and then within days becomes weaponized. Like I have a great story of like having a threat intelligence tip, finding that thing, pulling all the levers I could in the organization I worked to get us patched up and prepared for that. And within days, seeing real targeted exploits being picked up through our detection mechanisms. And had they gotten through, had we not patched, they would have been successful. Like 5 days from like, holy shit to nope, we're hardened, we feel good. And like that circle repeats. But put an AI machine on top of that now. And how fast would it be able to consume that content, turn around and weaponize that with an arguable goal? Now put a state that's motivated behind that and give them both the AI horsepower, the state horsepower, and like that's the force multiplier risk that we all see.
So let's use some of our wisdom here and like go back.
Let's kill something.
So Code Red, right? Code Red, like from notification to response to remediation, was months. Where were you?
I was in the Marine Corps.
You were in the Marine Corps.
Yep. I was running. Well, this is a really good one for me because this was to me the birth of the industry, the birth of the security industry. Like I was at the time. The Marine Corps was in a very unique position where they had a true hub and spoke enterprise architecture, OG kind of network. So where were you in 2002? I think that's about the timeline.
Joint Task Force Global Network Operations.
GNO, right?
GNO.
All right. So you're GNO.
For everyone listening at home that doesn't know, all the military service components report up all their incident and cybersecurity information to the GNO at the time.
That's right. Well, it's bigger than that. They had sensor grids and like try to constrain internet access so they could monitor all the services and
incident response team,
like intelligence agencies plugged in to be able to monitor and surveil, all kinds of cool stuff like that.
Deployable resources. Yeah,
that's right. And so I sat at the service level, and the hub and spoke network consolidated through a couple of internet access points, and that's where our monitoring and surveillance was. And so Code Red was like literally the thing that we were, it was like one of the first real network based external intrusions. I think about like Melissa Love Letter as the first worm based, and like holy shit, like that stuff can break your email, and all of a sudden warfighters can't fight, can't send logistical requests because they don't use the janky Unix based logistics system. They want to send emails of like I need toilet paper, and that became a real factor because I need bullets, and then Code Red became, and like it was scary because it took a long time for us to sort out what it was, but it was largely just nonsense because it was website defacements like NIMDA and things like that. But it was the real, like everything connected to the internet could be automated, weaponized, and that shit would just go after your stuff and turn it into screening noise.
It was bases shutting down their networks.
Yeah.
Like that's how scary it was.
Yeah.
And so from a 0 day, O-day perspective to today, right? As you said, that was the birth of, cyber for a lot of people, cybersecurity defense for a lot of people, going from like, oh, we have this thing that we don't know what it is. We don't know how to contain or remediate it. The only solution is let's turn off our base.
Yeah.
Ships pulling into port were not allowed to connect to the internet, right? It was so big for something that really wasn't that bad, but at the time it was horrible.
Get command.exe.
Yeah.
Like I remember the illicit command we put in the sensors.
I remember writing a sensor notification and someone handing it to me on a floppy and taking it from a non-classified system up to the classified system, being like, hey, we need to get this on the classified networks so we can start monitoring for this. And, military officers saying, whoa, no. That's not on, there's no way for that to get onto the classified network.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess what? It was on the classified network.
Of course. Like, are you kidding? Like that was the best Counter-Strike network there was.
Yeah. PS2 network on the world. And then we fast forward to today, right? And, we're seeing advancements both in the vendor space of, Microsoft, AWS, all, SaaS providers coming out and immediately saying like, hey, here's our guidance, or this is our patching, upgrade schedule.
Yeah.
This is what you can expect from us,
Yeah.
to, organizations, whether it's the, DHS or CCERT or, at company level dictating like, hey, this is what you need to do to secure, to, mitigate risks on your network. So like there's been a huge thing, but to drag this whole AI thing into it, like, is that speed going to exponentially increase so fast that the defenders are going to be at a loss for a certain period of time?
That's the arms race, man. That's what you're talking about. Like,
but are we now just going to jump levels where it's going to take 100 years to catch up?
I don't think so. I think like the industry will respond, and they will first off, like, look, you and I know how state-sponsored actors operate. They're operating on an automated ecosystem of activity, and a lot of it's throw shit against the wall and see what sticks, right? And our defensive capabilities, our detection functionalities, the industries like figured that out, and they respond to it. And it's all about SDLC now, right? Like they change their automation, like our automation responds in terms of like how command and control works with C2, or like how emails are tailored for specific users, and so that already exists today. So like as they jump to more automation, like they will like whatever mechanisms of training, unless AI engines themselves are reinvented and isolated, I fail to see how that brain cannot be reapplied to the defensive strategy as well. So it will jump, and you'll see more of it, and you'll see smarter versions of it, and then the tooling will embrace the same functionality and embrace the same learning. They're like, yep, this stuff looks like AI generated stuff. Just like my wife's a teacher, and she's already getting training on how to sniff out, if they're papers that are submitted by their students or Chat GPT generate. And there's already technology that's been submitted that that teachers are being taught to use to run their papers through to see if they're so. Just as the same as it's being conscripted, that's not even the thing I'm worried about. It's like the arms race will always escalate, and this will be a step change in that. Is that I think we're going to lose the trade craft. Like this is the thing that like you've heard of, like we live in a black box society. We don't have enough smart people that know how to do. Mike Judge nailed it in Idiocracy.
Yep.
And like, will we have cybersecurity professionals in 10 years, or will we have people that tweak and tune AI engines? And this, how many industries is this applicable to? This is the one I'm working in and I'm familiar with. But like, if you're dependent on the AI engine to learn the methodology of the attacker, then who's going to continuously train that engine? And if we don't have the people that are actually thinking like the attacker as part of the tradecraft, the offensive to defensive or purple construct, then how do we better defend ourselves against that? I'm worried to death that we're gonna we already have a human workforce shortage in this industry. You let this thing run amok, as well as states are going to do the same kind of thing. I worry more about we're not going to know what to do with the thing when things go bad.
Okay, well, I'm just going to play the other side of this. Well, hopefully in the next 2 years, AI is going to be able to solve all kinds of problems for businesses, managed security providers.
The positive.
Because AI is going to be able to create those, entry-level cybersecurity analysts because it will be able to know, identify, and quickly, without having to have a human operator look at something, go and create, build signatures, deploy those, test and deploy those without any interaction. And as a MSSP or whatever, you only need 1 or 2 tier 3 people to go look at the actual incident-related stuff.
Sure.
AI can probably take care of the rest.
Totally. And so that's how we're going to fix our workforce problem.
Yep.
That will automate all that bullshit.
Hey,
like most of that bullshit's fixed anyway, man.
do you know what
That's
builds
what SOAR stuff is supposed to be doing, right? If you know what you're doing with it.
should be? Yeah, absolutely. Single pane of glass, eliminate the workforce. In Germany, do you know who builds the robots that build the automotive industry throughout the world?
No, it's not ASML down the street. They make the chips that build those robots.
Exactly. It's the robots. There's robots that build robots to build cars.
So we're already there.
So we're there.
We're already there.
We just need to make sure that that's secure.
So, all right. So like now I'm half a beer in. It's good beer. Like I can say the thing that I've wanted to say about AI and what I think it's going to lead to. We'll talk about the AI dilemma thing in a little while. We're late. That came out in March, but I think our rapid adoption of AI and how the damage that it has potential to do, and if that comes to bear, that's going to be the impetus for the unplug. And this is my TED Talk. Like my TED Talk is like, look what we did with social media. Like first off, look what we did with the economics of the internet. Let's back all the way up. Internet allowed a level of connection and e-commerce to happen, which funded the internet. And then this thing called social media was born, and it tapped into the psychology of the human and allowed us to all interconnect in a way we've never connected before, which was like really cool on the surface. But look at the damage that it's done, and that now it's used wholly for disinformation.
That same human that's responsible for almost all cyber incidents that occur now. Just clicking on fucking emails. Got it. That same human. Okay.
That's right.
Good.
That's right. It's all still just clicking on emails.
Yep.
And there's already revolt, right? Like we're already like, if you, I love, I can't remember the guy's name. I'll go dig it up for notes references. But like the number one thing you could do to influence social media right now is turn it off, because the algorithmic approaches they've taken, it only proselytize bad things, salacious stuff, and because that's what gets the clicks, and that's unfortunately tapped into the human psyche. Like we only can do that. We cannot break the human psyche. So we're gonna get to the point where like you can't trust anything on the internet anymore. And you can't trust anything about what the connectivity or the person is that uses technology anymore, because AI is going to be influenced by it, and the concept of deep fakes and all that. Like, what does this thing do other than wreck my life? And this is going to be the reset. This is the what was the movie? Hang on, let me get it. Where they built a commune that was largely like the Pilgrims. They went over the wall. It was M. Night Shyamalan they put the scarlet letter on the it wasn't the scarlet letter. I had to read that book in high school, but put the scarlet letter on the door. It turns out that they were modernists who like rejected technology and went and built. Back to security topics. Okay, not gonna punch down on industry, but like don't sell me AI. But like everyone's trying to figure out how to embrace AI as part of the topic because there's the economic incentive to do so. And if there's not an ethical strategy for that, Worm GPT is the perfect example of something that's going to pop out of a box one day and fuck us up. And that's what all of the AI researchers are worried about. Like, we just don't know where this thing's going to go. We hardly know how it works. And then there's long-term ramifications like, workforce de-education and not knowing how to work in these systems anymore because the systems do it all.
Okay. I'm sure Microsoft plus FANG are working on it, and there's nothing to worry about. So they'll put the appropriate resources into it.
And then it's Fight Club, man. Like, who's going to blow up Microsoft's building? Like, not that that's ever going to happen. I don't have anything to do with that. But, like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, there's going to be a rejectionist movement. I'm predicting that. And now maybe it'll be, hopefully, I hope that it will be civil and passive. Like, it will probably start with, a social movement of, like, you can't trust and believe in technology is doing more damage than good in society. To almost embrace a religious tone.
So just to make sure we're bringing everyone along here, you can't trust anyone. You're saying that based off of the AI dilemma, and others that have thought these same things. But the deep fake, is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Of hey, I can't validate anyone's identity in the status quo right now.
Yeah.
You and I get on a Zoom call. You don't know if that's me or some 13-year-old hacker in Brunswick, Maine.
It's that is the most vivid example, but it's already here, right? Like, it's already like, remember, like, how did you used to shop on Amazon? Show me the highest rated. Show me the good reviews. Like, none of that shit's real anymore.
Oh, here's the recommendation.
This is all fake. Like, literally, we're already falling back to like, who do I know that has a product like this? And let me get into my town Facebook page and like, does anyone have anything like this? Have any experience with something like this? And like, let me talk to someone. We're already like, there's a simple example of how like we've already had the rejectionist movement. And then to your point, like, and this is like, hey Greg, like you had a thing you wanted to skip ahead. You wanted to show us a thing and have us talk about it. We're already kind of there. So do you want us to do that? This is actually right out of the AI dilemma. Like, it was connected to that. So since I know you wanted to.
Right. One is from Joanna Stern. She is able to bypass audio verification to her bank account. So she calls the bank.
Yeah.
And she presents fake identity.
Yeah.
And she passes.
Hang on, pause. So let's talk about the first one. Like,
this segment brought to you by Brondo.
It's got what plants crave.
So Joanna Stern, Wall Street Journal journalist, excellent stuff. If you're not familiar, go check out her work on Wall Street Journal.
Your first point of like already the simplest, lowest brow of what you'd expect in financial fraud already taking place, just with like the beta version of these products coming out, like already been weaponized. People are already spoofing their way into financial services accounts. And so like, think about what that means to be a CISO of a bank right now.
Yeah.
And like, you got a fraud team. The fraud team focuses a lot on how business process works and like the underpinning of how authentication process works is totally gone. And we have privacy rules in this country and others that don't want to do blood draws, and like, we're not going to give you some DNA to put in my phone so I can trust the phone. So like, what do you do? What does that mean? So I don't know. I don't have a good answer. And so like, back to the rejectionist movement, like can't trust logging into my bank. You better have a brick and mortar. Well, shit. Like, is a bank going to go build brick and mortar services now? Or you can only go to Chase in the banks that have them because of it.
Northern California has a bunch of vacant brick and mortar locations, formerly known as Silicon Valley National Bank.
Totally.
So probably pick those up cheap right now.
And so what was the other one, Greg? Do you want to show us?
This is a new feature in iOS 17 that will let you create your own voice problem there is if somebody hijacks your phone.
Christ. And it's in iOS 17, so it's like literally on
They can
every
try the
mobile device
17.
around the world.
Yeah, Apple put it in as an
As a
accessibility
feature.
feature.
Oh, an accessibility feature.
Just so it's not so visible and not so obvious, but it's there, and we'll see how far they take it.
Woo. Woo, show it.
It sounds like I'm talking on the phone to someone and it kind of has a poor connection, you know? But this isn't some mainstream feature. Like I said, it's an accessibility settings for a reason. This is designed for people who may know that they are at risk of losing their voice at some point, or maybe their vocal cords fatigue after a long time.
Point number 3. The little things.
The little things. Apple's always
Amazing.
generic Siri voiced, and it actually kind of still sounds like them.
All right, let's move on to the next bullet point, number 3. The little things.
There you go.
So that was his voice that it like listened to him and then translated that. I'm really sick today. Can you guys, do my time card for me?
Hey, Chris, I don't think we're gonna make it in today. Get a little bit of the
I
flu.
mean, just think about the chaos that can create. Like,
Absolutely.
What was right before COVID? We had unfortunately, I lived in DC during the DC shooter, so I remember those days, and those were pretty terrible. We had a bunch of bomb threats happening in schools up here in New York a couple years ago. Like, just imagine the chaos that can be crazy. You got the brain figuring out the way you cause chaos, and then you got these very simple mechanisms that are already introduced indiscriminately into the tech stack. And like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, how many times has this happened? And people are like, turn that shit off.
Yeah.
I'm done with it.
I know that you personally use the dark web to order inappropriate gifts for people
Various
online.
things.
However, another common thing that's been around for a decade is the whole swatting thing.
Yeah.
You go online for $50, hire someone in Australia, and they swat someone's house. Well, what happens when that happens 10 times in one town? In our town of Wilton, Connecticut, of
Right.
what are we, 30,000 people?
Right.
What happens when that happens 300 times at once?
Right.
The grid can't support it. Law enforcement can't support it.
Right.
None of these things. And then what happens when it happens constantly or every day? All of these things can very easily occur. And a police officer, dispatcher answering the phone, they'll recognize the difference between the, no offense, Siri voice or an automated type voice versus what sounds to be like a real human being.
Yeah.
Although, irony, I tried to use the Google scheduling assistant to make her a dinner reservation a couple weeks ago, and after 6 times it failed. But I'm glad to know that I can hack someone's bank account easier than I can make a dinner reservation. Things I care about.
Yeah, certainly what was I had another clip Greg, that we were talking about earlier, within the social dilemma, 3 seconds of voice content, and it's smart enough to emulate your voice. 3 seconds.
You want me to play it?
Yeah, like people haven't. But P.S. Big fan. This thing kind of moves around a lot in terms of the whole impetus of the show.
And with exponential curves,
Hang on a second.
we now need to skate way further than where you might think.
The impetus of this thing is about trying to drive some ethics into this, because these folks are worried about where this leads, and I'm seeing the other side of the equation of, we're not going to do this, and it's going to screw around with the economy in such a way that it's going to create a lot of tension, and what is that tension going to lead to, especially in the world that we live in today with all the other tensions we have with climate change, the risk of that, election fraud, and politics are a mess, and you put this on top of it. The one thing that I think people lean into as a coping mechanism is their ability to connect and share with people. And then you find out all that's fake and you're being manipulated by machines. That's it. It's over. People are moving to the mountains. But this is a really interesting point right here. Run this real quick.
You need to.
But just to name it explicitly, this is the year that all content-based verification breaks. Just does not work, and none of our institutions are yet able to, they haven't thought about it. They're not able to stand up to it. So we tried this example, state ID. Generate me lots of state IDs.
Where was this in college?
Okay. I don't know if you guys have seen the latest TikTok filters. They're wild.
I can't believe this is a filter. The fact that this is what filters have evolved into is actually crazy to me. I grew up with the dog filter on Snapchat, and now this filter gave me lip fillers. This is what I look like in real life.
Like, what does this do to beauty standards for women?
Are you kidding me?
I really wanted this to be you.
Just seeing someone, all content-based verification breaks this year. You do not know who you're talking to, whether via audio or via video. And, do you want to give this example of China?
Sure. Since I've been on this kick about trying to say why TikTok is such a dangerous thing for national security, you may all be aware that the Biden administration, there's been this whole negotiation. Should we let TikTok keep running in the United States? And there's this deal, well, what if we just make sure that the data is stored in the US so that it's stored in some secure Texas-based Oracle server? We could just do that. If I'm the Chinese Communist Party and I want to screw up the US right now, what I do is I just ship a Biden and Trump filter to every single person in your country that gives you a Biden voice or a Trump voice. So now I've turned all of your citizens, like being John Malkovich, into the sort of most angry Biden-Trump, information-angry army that just talks all day in a cacophony, right? And that would just break your society into incoherence. It has nothing to do with where the data is stored. It has nothing to do with where the algorithm, which videos are being ranked in what way. It has to do with how we are enabling sort of a mass confrontation with disreality.
Yeah, pause. I revised my statement. It's either civil war or a rejectionist movement.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like, think about it. Like, that's here now. Here we are, you and I haggling over, oh, geez, like cyber attacks are going to change and whatnot. And like that's a much bigger meta issue that I think we're all going to deal with. Like, we can't trust our financial institutions because the money that we put there can now be easily hacked into, and that most of their access is content derived. And your TikTok filter allows you to seamlessly deep fake, and the voice filter in iOS 17 makes it pretty easy to trivialize your voice. All you need is a little bit of PII about you.
When are we going to get the Guy Fawkes mask? And can we agree on a voice for that so we can all start having offensive security podcasts?
No wonder the government is working so hard to disarm civilization.
Yeah. Do you mean TikTok?
Too soon?
No. Okay. All right.
Oof. Good Lord. All right. Well, that's a heavy topic, man. We'll probably talk some more about that.
Oh, of course.
In time and as it evolves, but it's.
I imagine AI will be around when we drop the next podcast.
Yeah.
So, other two things that we had on our agenda was that we were going to start wagering on the Elon Musk.
The fight.
The fight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Did you decide who you're gonna?
Dude, I'm all Elon.
Oh, okay.
Like the work ethic of that guy and the crazy that's in him. Like, I'm hanging. Like, my favorite was when he hung the Twitter sign out there and changed it. So
Twitter, is that still around?
Yeah.
Sorry. Threads.
Very Simpsons.
So 100% Zuck. Zuck all the way. Zuck's gonna.
Yeah, you're in Camp Zuck.
100%.
I'm in Camp Musk.
Zuck is gonna take on Elon, and XQRD, whatever number.
ACD?
No, whatever title number we're gonna fight this. So Zuck all the way. So
all right, we got to back that logic up.
So we got to.
Or you don't.
Well, check in next week for our next podcast.
I'll have my battle plan and my wager calculation established.
Yeah, so start thinking about your wager, what you're going to pay me, and what commodity that's wager's going to occur in.
I see like Zuck coming in and with a martial arts kind of thing, and I see Elon coming in like Backstreet Brawler, just like he manages his business, like make a big mess, don't care, like I'm in charge, and. Okay. This is amazing and ludicrous at the same time that the two most influential technologists on the planet, and when are they going to fight, and who's going to lead the civil war or rejectionist movement?
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's going to.
That is the punchline right there.
Yeah. and then Twitter or Threads forever. Gonna have to make new shirts.
All right. New. Oh, go ahead.
No, please.
New topic. We're looking for roles and fooling around with work. What's been your experience like so far? You've had some colorful experience you've shared with me privately. I wonder if you would share with me a little more, share with our audience a little more about that.
You're saying semi-retirement, looking for new opportunities.
We're doing this thing, and I got a couple things to add to this too. It's kind of interesting, but there was a meta point that I know you wanted to share, and so I wanted to make sure we got to that.
So what are we going to call this? What gets my goat segment?
Yeah. Oh, my
Family Guy already took what grinds my gears.
Grinds my gears.
So tech recruiting, very specific. Not the focus firms, but the LinkedIn level of tech recruiting, to me, is abysmal. It is at the absolute bottom, worse than I've ever seen in my entire life. So I have a resume that's formatted, as the professionals say, into a way that LinkedIn and a lot of these automated job submission, formats work. So I got a bunch of keywords in there, but it's also position based, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, I did a search through my
AI can troll through that and figure out if you're worth a shit.
I wish. 2 weeks ago, I went searched through all my deleted items, and there was 188 job requests that have been sent through me through some LinkedIn person over the previous 30 days.
Yeah.
And the senior most position there was for a senior engineer, right?
Yeah.
So I've spent the last 11 years in a CISO type role. And so just like knowing that, it's like there used to be a point where it's like, hey, do you not read the resume because you're like trying to fill a position? The defense contracting of like, hey, you have a clearance, no matter what your background is, like we can get you in on this contract. We can find something for you.
Yeah.
It's not any of those. This is legitimately, people are firing off just hundreds and hundreds of emails.
Back to our previous point. Do you think it's people?
I don't know. That's a very good point. So something
is
someone
firing that shit off.
And it's horrible.
Yeah.
And it's annoying to me, but like the more meta point is like, what's the return on investment there? Like what are these firms getting out of this? Are they getting anything out of this? It just seems like such bad business practices.
Yeah. Seems like a total, like somebody's got to filter that shit out, right? Because you always get a call from a person.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they've got to figure out if they got a reasonable match, and that's energy, that's time, that's manual labor. So it seems crazy that the shotgun effect of recruiting, and the value proposition being as bad as it is.
Yeah. And of course, I know, like, speaking about this publicly, I'm going to get 10,000 junior analyst roles in my LinkedIn. So just bring it. Happy to play along.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in any of those roles.
Well, like there's the other half of that equation that I've been experiencing, and not bagging on any particular recruiters or anything like that, or the industry, like it's a tough job, is it's really difficult to extract the essence of the firm so the right kind of person can be matched to that role. Like what I appreciate about our time at Bridgewater was so much about kind of this education that I had formalized for me there about, like, they called it feeling the click.
Yeah.
But like understanding what the person was like, and when you understand what they're like, that comes derivative of a lot of interesting things about how they work, what they're good at, the skills and abilities, but higher order to that, their values and their and how they think about work, and like that constituting a picture of a role, and really thinking about the role and what the role requires in a values level and an abilities level, and skills can often be gained, and like connecting those two things together so the right kind of person at all levels fits into the role and performs well, and you've got a monitoring way to do that. Like that was kind of the whole DOTS ecosystem that Ray proselytized out there, and like that was a way that, and he was going to change the world, but the cost of doing that is, from my perspective, very difficult, which is why I don't think it's changed the world yet. But at the same time, like being a good manager means thinking about what you need, and kind of been my experience in some of the jobs that I've had is that some people hire for culture fit and expect you to figure the technology out. And like I was hired for culture, and I was already a technologist, and like I lived on the technology bend because they were so culturally focused that the technology was like an innovation. Like you could actually automate many of the things that you're doing. It's kind of silly. And then other places that were very tech bent, and I proved my mettle with that, but I really survived on my cultural acumen. And like being able to extract that picture, and then for a recruiter to pick that up and then go figure that out, that's the hard part of the job. And like, sending that smattering out like is just a way to feed it. But then what I found is like once they send the smattering out and you pick up the phone and call them, they have no idea what they really want.
Yeah.
And they haven't gotten that out of the customer. They haven't gotten, as the recruiter, they haven't gotten that out of the customer. And so, like, what I found, what discriminates a good recruiting firm is one that's really got that deeply intimate relationship with the organization, knows what they're like, knows what they're looking for, and frankly, will often have an objective, uniquely different opinion. Like, they're hiring for this, but like what I know about is this, and like these two things you got to kind of wrestle with as the candidate. And there's not a lot of people that put that kind of effort, energy, or even have the mental horsepower to do it. And that's why I see like there's just a lot of people that are just literally like wreck color of this looks like that, put them over there and go for it, and like let me charge a fee for that. And that is so unfortunately wasteful in an industry that's I think kind of unique and undisciplined as security is. I mean, it works for some, especially at some of the levels where there's a little more commoditization. But I don't know, man. Like I think anybody that's modestly experienced, it's back to that big point that we were talking about earlier when we first opened the show. Security's a light bill, and a lot of executive organizations don't want to acknowledge that. They don't want to. It's a light bill to them, but it's a business enabler that they really need to be investing in and make it part of the business and bring it up a level, because you don't want to pay your insurance premium. I used this analogy recently. You don't want to pay your insurance premium to break your leg.
Yeah.
Right. And if you weren't paying enough insurance premium to get good care, you sure wish you were when the leg's broke, and you get told sorry. You get the splint. You get the field split because that's what you've been paying for. Like nobody wants to be there, and it's unfortunate it's there. And like this falls all the way back to recruiting too, and like how recruiting is operating. And I don't know how to change that in the industry. You see good recruiting, I think, in organizations that can afford to pay for recruiters to do that, but the rest is up to the individual. And what I think is interesting about this, I was talking to what's up, Brett Galloway, CEO of Attack IQ. Met him at RSA when I worked there. We became friends, and I was talking to him about kind of what my future career holds and jumping back into the game as a CISO, or like doing some of the, like, this is really fun to do, and this isn't a day job. This is us sharing, and if something good comes from that in the future, awesome. But like there's other stuff to do, and like my one of my skills, one of my superpowers is people. Right? Yeah. Like being able to do those things that structurally I was learned well at Bridgewater, and finding the right click for the role for people. And he's like, you should be an executive recruiter. I don't know. That's a game I want to get into. It comes with the problems that you're describing. But at the end of the day, like, maybe that's something we should be thinking about. The point being I'm trying to make with all that is that like there's a lot of horsepower to be gained in spending a little time understanding as a recruiter what the organization wants, sizing your people up well, creating a mechanism to do that. I was reading one of the big dog recruiter firms, and the AI, and like they had all those buzzwords in there, and it created this like immediate distrust for me, because it's like it really comes down to this is a human business, and if you take humans out of it, it's not a human business anymore, and that's what I particularly like about like the organizations are good at it. They make it real. They build relationships on both sides of the equation, the people, the candidates they're interviewing, and whatnot. And what does this mean for our listening community? I don't know yet. Like, there's a lot of noise out there. Pick your partners carefully. Think really hard about that, and like you're gonna get a lot. You probably when you hit the market, you're gonna get a lot of noise.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, as we see things pop up, we can always throw them out there on our Twitter and Threads feeds and everything. So help people out, and if there's recruiting firms out there that have an opinion on this, reach out. We would love to have that conversation with you.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at Greg. Greg's throwing some signs at me. Maybe it means we're at time. Maybe it means he's really upset with me. But
Yeah. What's going on?
Any parting thoughts?
Let's see. Well, you had a couple of other things on the agenda list for today. I want to make sure we hit them all. So we did the Zuck thing, the Zuck Elon fight.
Yep.
We talked about like the unfortunately terrible experience you're having with the recruiting community. The good ones keep doing what you're doing. The other ones like listen here. Was there anything else on the list?
I don't think so.
Okay. We have so part of so for our listening community, like really proud of this, that like in the first show, in the first 400 listeners, we already have people that want to work with us, which is fantastic. So we've got a couple serendipitous, the recruiting thing came up. One of them is an organization called TechFellow. It's a premier executive recruiting firm. Jeff and Cam run a really tight ship, have been great partners for me in my past. And so I asked them to put, they're now partners of the show. And I asked them to put together a couple of hot roles. Can we bring up that slide real quick? So these are New York City roles. These guys are out of England, but they do a lot of staffing in the financial services firm and the firms in our New England region. But as you can see, we've got a senior security architect role, and some of the role definitions here. This is a tough job, as you'd expect as a security architect would be, but it's got a really healthy comp package, and then a global incident response commander role, and an even healthier compensation package. Both of these are very technical roles. Both of these need to be very, very culturally diverse roles. These are tough places to work, but if you've been around the world and seen and done lots of things, you have a good probability of success. So we wanted to hang that out there to help along those that are looking. And we can certainly help if you want to reach out to us directly in terms of a little more color on what these roles are like, and what it's like to work in some of these kinds of financial institutions in the region. We can do that. And so that's that. And so hopefully, we're going to bring Jeff on. It's funny, the recruiting talk, I know Jeff wanted to come down. He's like, literally, I'm going to come hang out in your barn and, tell you my side of the story and what it's like to try to work with institutions and be a good steward of the candidate, and like how tough the gig is. And all the more reason, like when Brett told me I should be a recruiter, I was like, man, I may be a recruiter influencer. But I think this is a really interesting point. What do you do when you're done being a security guy, and or when you're done being an operational security guy? And it's kind of interesting. I'm at the point in my career, I'm starting to see people transition, and they're doing several things that are kind of interesting and unique. I see some folks stepping up and moving into like COO roles. Like the truth is, the CISO role is so dynamic. You're really well positioned to go be a CTO, CIO, and or COO, and like be part of like running the business. Because if you're doing your job well, you're in the middle of everything.
You know the tech, you know the security.
Those are hard jobs too, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see people stepping to the right and going out and being like startup advisors and consultants and like taking a bit of what we're doing here, the wisdom, and like monetizing that in a more meaningful way and trying to share, but not having to carry that operational burden every day. And then the other that I see is kind of interesting. I call it kind of the fight club of retirement. Is I've met some interesting institutions that are very word of mouth based, that take people with big brands that have done cool and interesting things, and they help mentor you along into like a retirement that is non-operational, but can offer you opportunities in executive consulting, expert testimony in court hearings, other advisory services, and take your experience and make a lot of money. So it's kind of interesting to see. I see people doing that. I hear it from the retirement lens. I'm not ready to retire, But I hear people doing that, now sooner than later because they're burnt out in some ways, which is kind of, that was the other thing I wanted to add to like the recruiting thing is like, man, maybe you're not thinking about recruiting the right way. Maybe figuring out like where you want to go and be and what you want to do and like carving a different path, which is, I'm so glad we're doing this. It's just another example of trying something new and different and see if it works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Short of anyone giving me a like $10,000 lathe for my wood shop, I'm very bored and looking to get back out there. So,
like, where's the job requisition for you showing up on this board?
But yeah, okay, good.
Well, I got one more thing. And Carl couldn't be with us today. We'll figure out either how to like do another one of these or dub him in or something like that. But you started this like not a punch down on the vendor community. And I was telling my buddy Carl, who's the COO of Attack IQ, I very proud of the work that we did there. Carl's also a good friend and very smart, pragmatic guy. He's like, no, dude, I want a piece of that. Like, if you want an unapologetic security podcast, like, let me give you the vendor side of that. Let me tell you the bullshit I had to deal with to sell my product. I have a good product. It works well. It does the thing it's supposed to. And like, how difficult can a customer make it? Or how difficult can a partnership be to get my product integrated? And I think there's a lack of education, having worked, you and I both worked on both sides of the fence, both as consultants on the product side and on the operational buy side, that like a lot of fun perspective of like how we as CISOs can torture the vendor community and many of it unnecessarily. So part of the goal that I'd hope we would get out of this podcast would illuminate some of that. Like, be nice to your vendors. You need them.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of good ones out there, a lot of tough ones. But the reality is like having Carl come in as part of the show and like, here's stupid shit I had to deal with today. And like, don't do that to everyone. It's not helpful. You're slowing down your buy cycle. You're slowing down your time to value in your products. And I think that's a really good way to like balance this equation. So we're not just two CISOs beating up on the community.
Sure. And from my time at Symantec and Access Data of, a customer getting an updated quote 2 or 3 years later that's 20% higher than the previous one. And be like, oh, like your software, like it doesn't cost you anything to build. So I've seen it on both sides. I get it. But yeah, there's absolutely a good way and a bad way of going about this for the buy cycle, the sell cycle. There's multiple parties that are involved in it. A lot of stress that goes into it. So I'd love to have Carl and others come in and talk to us about it, as well as like innovation that's out there, and a lot of these product companies that we're seeing that we've worked with for years, and what's coming down the pipe. Why is it important? Who's doing what with new tech?
But balanced, right? Yeah. Like no fake it till you make it. Like this isn't like how many startups are like, this is the thing we're gonna do versus like, here's the thing it does and it's really good at it. And like come like have that conversation and we'll beat it up and tell you what we think.
Yeah, and for those questioning the integrity, this is an industry built on free T-shirts and booze at conferences. So you're not going to sway us that easy. When Carl and others come on, they're not buying our time. We've built relationships with people that we trust. We're going to bring them in and have real conversations with them.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll get that plugged in either for next show or like we'll do a side show for Carl because I know he was really excited to do that. But he lives in Montana. I just got back from Montana myself. Didn't get to connect, but Glacier National Park and all that. So he's living the dream. It's a beautiful place. I don't blame him for avoiding us today.
Hiding.
So looking forward, what are we going to talk about next? Like I got a couple of topics in mind. Like I had a topic that I took a tip from a former coworker of mine about like how to like thinking about like future career opportunities and what it means to be a good advisor to like a startup and like how we could coach and advise startups to take, much like recruiters. Like you should listen to guys like us and folks that we bring on the show. think the truth is, I think the recruiting industry has a tough time because they don't know how to connect to their business and they don't know how to sell their candidate. Like we do. This is what we do all day. We're in the human capital business in many ways, like our programs do. That's an area that's interesting to me, of like helping the value proposition of new capabilities come to light. Like it's up to them to make it real. That's what engineering does. Like burnout and mental health is a real thing. Like you and I have talked a lot about that personally and professionally. And
Allegedly.
Allegedly, like that's an area I'd love to dig into that with some folks that are like tired of this shit in some ways, and like how do you balance and manage it, and how do you deal with it, and like I've got my own stories pent up in that, and having lots of crazy, interesting, stressful jobs. I think third party risk is like huge, and I don't know what to say about it other than like it is the core risk that no one talks about.
It's getting better and getting worse every day.
Yeah, like you get more data, but how do you make decisions from it, and how do you empower the organization to take advantage of that data, and who actually makes the decision, and the inherited risk of indecision. Like it's like this whole subsection of the GRC program of like my own organization and who's responsible for what is like this whole layer that I like. I don't know how to crystallize this into the framework yet, but like you buy a company, you go buy a relationship, and the implications and the knock-on consequences of that and how that gets parlayed to the enterprise is like such an interesting thing. So those are a couple of interesting topics, but again, like we shared in the show, like contribute. Tell us what you want to talk about. Like,
yep.
like send us links. Send us like, what do you think about this? Like, I love free form. I hate structure. I'm not a really good frameworky guy, as I've been told. I riff in the moment best. So help play to our strengths and let us know what you think.
Sounds good.
All
right.
Any parting shots, Jay?
Nope. I don't have anything right now. I'm gonna come up with a really good one next time. All
right, we need more sounds. I need the bruh.
Bruh. This is really good. Thank you very much, Greg. Again, man behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.
And anybody out there, like, get your ass to Connecticut. Come on up. Let's have a talk. Like, talk about what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Next time.